Hello everyone, Veigar here. I know it's a shocker, I'm uploading on this channel. So Veigar has been buffed at 12.2, which obviously means that now pro players are considering the champion again and he might be viable for pro play. It's been 2 years or so, maybe even 3 years, since the last time I uploaded the Veigar guide, and a lot of things has changed since then, both with the champion, the game, and myself as a player. I think I've gotten a lot better, both in my game knowledge and my own gameplay since then, so I feel like it would be good to have a better guide. We'll be talking about the mechanics of Veigar, matchups, runes, items, how do I play Veigar, what's my mindset when I'm playing Veigar, and what is he comparable to. We'll talk very in depth. This video might be a bit long, as I don't like to edit my videos, I like to have all my thoughts gathered in one video, so please bear with me. I will still not be uploading much on this YouTube channel, because I'm uploading most of my content on Patreon, such as coaching videos and everything, so make sure you subscribe to that, you will not be disappointed. So if you're new here, who am I? I played League since Season 3, I reached Challenger in like Season 6, Season 7, I've been Challenger with Jungle, Mid and Support. I've been Challenger with Veigar only and with no Veigar at all. So I think I'm at least decent. And Veigar is my favorite champion, and he will still be. Ever since I started coaching professionally, Veigar has still, even then, been my most played champion. I just like the champ a lot. On this screenshot, this is my win rate on last season with Veigar. I had 27 wins and 2 losses. All of these games were in Grandmaster Challenger. This was last season, this was before the buffs. I have done some crazy win records on Veigar, and I've helped many pro players play Veigar, as many know, for example, Nemesis, who played it in Fnatic and solo killed Faker. Without further ado, enough of this bragging, let's get talking about Veigar. Let's just break down his abilities real quick, because it's the most simple thing, and let's just talk about it, what it means. His passive, you get AP when you hit an enemy, and you get AP when you last hit. What you want to try to do in lane with this, you want to Q the enemy when the minions are full HP. That way you can Q the enemy to get 1 AP, but you'll get your Q back up when you're able to last it. What should you value? Gold and AP or damage? You should value the gold and AP. So if the minions are low, you should go for the minions, because gold and AP is permanent, the damage usually doesn't lead into anything, especially on a champion like Veigar. It's important to note that just getting assist will also give you a lot of AP, and this is how you kinda, in teamfights, you wanna make sure that you place your E even though it won't contribute to anything, because just placing your E is enough to give you an assist. Your Q, very basic ability. Only hard thing about this is learning the bounce radius, like how you can sneak some Qs between minions and all. There's some mechanics that we will talk about in practice tool about this spell, but it's pretty straightforward. W. Again, very basic ability. Cooldown goes down the more stacks you have. Every 50 stack, as you can see. Here, every 50 stack you get will reduce the cooldown. This means that later on in the game you'll be playing Earth and dropping 1k damage AoE nukes, which is very, very strong. AP ratio is really, really big, and we'll talk about that more when it comes to builds. Your E, the most broken ability that Veigar has, and for sure top 5 best abilities in the game that is not an ultimate, his stun. This is the hardest ability to use from Veigar, one of the hardest basic abilities in the game, and honestly, I don't think anyone uses this spell correctly. Not even myself. There's many times where I don't even cage properly. This spell is extremely hard to use, and you will need a lot of games to learn this. Your ult, very simple, just use it when enemies low. So moving on to items. What items are good on Veigar? Let's start with starting items. For this guide, we'll mainly be talking about mid lane Veigar, but bot lane is fairly similar. In bot lane, you don't need sustain as much, so Doran's Ring will usually be your main thing, whereas maybe if you're playing versus something like Ashe and Seraph, I would still go Corruption Potion, even though I'm in bot lane. So for starting items for mid lane, I go D-Ring if I think that 1, the HP will be valuable, and I don't need the sustain from Corruption Potion. One example of this would be I'm against Yasuo Diana, then I think D-Ring can be good. Let's say I'm in a harder matchup, like Syndra for example, or Zoe, that will poke me a lot in early game, I would go for Corruption Potion. Simply because it gives me mana, but also it will give me more sustain than having 2 pots with D-Ring will. The biggest issue on Veigar is laning level 1 to 4. Once you have 3 points in Q, it's not that hard anymore, and you'll be chilling, and your trades are actually not that bad. But yeah, I'd say probably 60 to 70% of games I'm starting Corruption Potion, just because early lanes are so bad. If I think my early laning phase will be really like chill and not gonna get contested, I would go Tear start. This would be matchups like Galio, where he can't really damage me, I'm not damaging him, we're both just farming. Sure, he will have push, but I'm buying Tear later on anyways, so it's nice to have it as a starting item to save some gold. So to summarize, D-Ring versus matchups like Fizz and Yasuo stuff where the HP can be nice, Corruption Potion when you're going to be taking a lot of damage, and Tear when the lane is kind of just free and you don't really need HP and you don't need sustain. Moving on to boots. Boots is really important on Veigar, and when it comes to stat evaluation, I value movement speed above pretty much everything. So for boots on Veigar, you want CDR boots or Sorc shoes. Some games, obviously, you'd want Merc Threads, whereas let's say you're against like Syndra Leona, Merc Threads might be nice. But yeah, I go CDR boots when I think that the fights will last relatively long. This usually happens when enemy gets MR, or if they're very like bruiser heavy team, or they have like enchanters, simply because spamming my cage is more value than more damage. If enemy is really squishy, then usually the fight will be really quick and be over quickly. Then I would tend to go Sorc shoes, just because the CDR has less value. Also, if I think that I'm going to be going like just straight damage after my Everfrost, then I also like CDR boots, since damage items don't give you any CDR. That was my client pop, so don't tab. So yeah, moving on. For basic items, which items should you be considering on Veigar? Mana is really important, almost always more important than AP, just because you can get AP, you can't really get mana. If you have Tear and Corruption Potion, you're probably good to go. You could probably go Amptom then, but if you're on your first base and you have Corruption Potion, you should probably start getting your Tear. After you've gotten your mana problems fixed though, you want to buy items like Amptom and maybe some Ruby Crystal into Kindle Gem sometimes. But yeah, moving on to epic items. The items you're going to be buying in early game here, pretty standard for mages right now. Kindle Gem and Chapter, those are like your main ones. There'll be some cases where maybe you buy a Magic Mantle, maybe you buy Oblivion Orb sometimes. There'll be cases like that, but for the main, most of your games, you're just going to have a Kindle Gem and a Chapter. Now this is where my Veigar is very different from a lot of other Veigars, which is what items I buy. I've spent a lot of years and like time playing versus some of the best players in the world, and these are the best items for Veigar, and I don't believe that there's any items that are better. So for Mythic item, Everfrost, most of the time is going to be the best, simply because it lets you land your stun, it lets you peel yourself, lets you set up your W, it's very nice. Other options, Crown is a decent item some games, where it cannot get popped and enemy relies on one-shotting you. For example, I like it versus Yasuo Diana quite a bit, I think it's pretty good into like a Fizz Rengar mid-jungle, stuff like that. Most of the time in competitive play though, where you're going to be playing Veigar, probably Everfrost will be the best. If you're a Veigar one-trick, you'll be playing some games that are really unplayable for Veigar. In those games I would go Luden's Tempest. Those games would be like versus really long range, like they have like a Seraph in mid lane, Jinx ADC, and the Jace in top. I'd go Luden's in that game simply because I can't reach anyone with Everfrost, and my crown will get popped. So having more magic pen and movement speed from the Luden's passive is really valuable and will help you land cages. For legendary items, there is a lot of items. Okay, so I'm gonna get my epic pen out so I can draw over the items that is good on Veigar, and we will talk on which items you should be getting and when. So first on, Anathemas. Anathemas is very good on Veigar. This item used to be good, not good anymore. We'll get to talk about why. This item can be good. This one can be good. This can be good. This one can very rarely be good, but sometimes. This can be good. This can be good. This can be good. This is not really good on Veigar, this one. The Horizon Focus. This is a very OP item. This can be good, but rarely, but it can be. This one. Rylai's is still bad on Veigar. This is very good item for Veigar. This can be good. This can be good, and this can be good. Okay, so I'll be checking this over and see if I'm missing anything. Yeah, this one can be good too. So let's start with this one. These two. Abyssal Mask. It used to be better on Veigar. Now it's a bit weaker. I'd say Force of Nature is probably better all the time because you can't really proc. You can't proc this one as well as you used to. So honestly, I'd say not actually good. I wouldn't buy that. Anathemas though, very, very good on Veigar. It's really good when enemy wants to dive into you and you want to mark a specific guy. For example, people are playing Akali right now, a lot. So buying Anathemas versus Akali means that you mark her, she's going to deal less damage to you, but now when she's diving in and you're Everfrosting and stunning her, she will legitimately be stunned for like 4 seconds. It's really nasty, okay? It's crazy. If you stun her and then you Everfrost and you chain it, it's 4-second stun. It's absolutely bonkers. So this is a must buy on Veigar later on in the game. Banshees is good when they have champions that relies on a specific spell, or they have champions that rely on specific spells and they can't pop your Banshees easily. Usually though, by the time I'm buying tanky items, I don't really value AP and then there's just better items. That's why you will rarely see me buy items like Zhonyas and Banshees, just because it is very, very hard to actually use these items on Veigar compared to using Force of Nature or Randuins or Anathemas. They just give you more tankiness. The reason why these items get bought on much more mages is because it gives AP, but Veigar doesn't need AP by the time you're buying these items. Cosmic Drive, obviously good on Veigar, good CDR. This is why I don't buy Archangel Staff or Seraph Embrace anymore, because simply this item gives less CDR than Cosmic Drive does. So it makes no sense to upgrade my tier into Seraphs when if I want CDR, I could just buy Cosmic Drive. Demon's Plate, really over-nerfed item sadly. This used to be core on Veigar, but nowadays you only build it late game if you need the movement speed and you also need armor. Because usually Randuins will just make you more tankier, and same with Frozen Heart. But sometimes you need the movement speed, like for example versus Jace. This item can be nice, lets you get in range easier, but also gives you the tankiness to live. Embrace, only good when enemy has a lot of HP stackers. You can apply it quite decently later on when you're spamming your W, so it's not as bad as you might think. Force of Nature, basically your main MR item. No explanation really needed, right? It gives you movement speed, gives you all the stats you want. Frozen Heart and Gargoyles. Frozen Heart is good when you're getting dove onto by champions that would get hurt by Frozen Heart. Champ like Tryndamere, champs like maybe Yasuo. Now, Gargoyles is good when you're gonna get dove onto, but there's multiple damage sources. I build this item right now, every game versus Diana Yasuo, and it's insane the damage I'm reducing. Because I have both armor and I have MR. Put that on top of an Anathemas that you mark Diana or Yasuo with, they can't play the game. You will tank their full combo and one-shot them both. It's very nice. Very good item. You buy Gargoyles if you need both the resistances. If you only need one resistance, usually another item will be better. Moving on. Magi's. It's just a cost-efficient item. If you have the gold for it, you should probably buy it. The issue with buying Magi's on Veigar is that usually you could go with the weaker spike, which is Needlessly Large Rod, but then you guarantee getting Rabadons. That's why you don't see me buy Magi's a lot, because usually what happens is you buy the Magi's, and then if you fuck up, it's a lot more worse on Veigar, because now you've spent so much gold not going towards your Rabadons. Merlot's obviously when you should buy it, right? I don't need to explain. Rabadons, best item on Veigar. Every single game you should look to buy this item. Even second item, it can be good. Just issue is that most of the time second Shadow Flame or Void Staff will deal more damage. If they have MR, Void Staff will deal more. If they have no MR, then usually Rabadons beats Shadow Flame if you have a lot of stacks. But if you didn't have a lot of stacks, or you don't have the gold to buy Needless Leaves all the time, then you can go Shadow Flame. Randuins, good versus AD divers that don't rely on auto attacks. Stuff like Kha'Zix. Stuff like Crit Rengar, he'll just like one-shot you. You can get jumped on, pop this, and you're quite tanky already from the stats that you get. Usually this is more of a complementary item where I have Anathemas and then I also get this, something like that. Or versus like really heavy crits that you can't proc Frozen Heart on. Like Jinx and stuff. Champs that outrange you really hard and are critting you. So yeah, we explained why Seraphs is bad. Shadow Flame, like I said, versus low MR, good item. Void Staff, good versus already, if they have Merc Threads, it's already good item. Warmogs, good if you're getting poked. And if they have like Jace and stuff like that, it can be really good. Like, Veigar is hard countered by poke. Like, really hard. And we'll talk about matchups. Zhonyas, really bait, shit item. I bought it a game ago, because I thought it would be a good Veigar game. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, this game, completely unplayable. Honestly, one of the reasons why I lost this game, to be honest, was buying Zhonyas. It's just useless. By the time you pop it, you're stuck and you are just dead. Usually you can place Cage and just run away. It's very rare for Zhonyas to be good. It's good when enemy has to commit like a specific spell or something to get on you, like maybe like Zed ult or Vladimir ult, Karthus ult, these type of things, it can be good. But usually you're better off buying other items or raw damage into an actual tanky item, so that you're actually tanky. And that's it for Veigar items. There are probably some that I missed that are just too niche to really talk about, but these are the main ones. And if you have any questions about them, let me know, but 100% the items that I mentioned are good for Veigar. Now, let's get into matchups. Can you one-trick Veigar? You can one-trick every champion in the game. Should you one-trick Veigar? Not really. And I'll explain why. Veigar is one of those champs that relies on a lot of things going well for him. If you are against a team comp like this, even though you could play Veigar here, it's like you can farm, you need your team to engage for you, you need them to engage properly, you know, you're on a timer here, you get bombed by Seraph and Jace, you are done, you can't play. So range counters Veigar. That's the biggest counter to Veigar, and this can't be said enough. People think Assassins counter Veigar, that is not true. Assassins counters a bad Veigar. Range counters Veigar. So, you want to avoid range. Except for that, I'd say Veigar is playable in every game. In low elo though, he's for sure really one-trickable because people don't use range properly. So when would I pick Veigar? I would pick Veigar every game, but when should you? When should you, especially in competitive? Right now, Akali is played a lot. Veigar is great into Akali. It's amazing. You counter her with Anathemas, laning phase is free, even 2v2 sometimes, you can even win sometimes. It's very hard for Akali to teamfight you, and honestly in side lane, because you can go tanky, she can't even win condition through diving you on side, because she can't dive you if you play it properly. So this is a great matchup. Azir Veigar is a classic. Only issue with this matchup is early laning phase, but you can go sustain in runes, you can even go second wind, secondary on your runes. So it's fine, we'll get to talk about runes soon. So it's playable, but a bit annoying early lane. You have a lot of gank setup on him though. So those two are fine. Moving on, Galio is like, it's free scaling. Issue with these type of matchups is he gets a lot of map pressure, he can free push and dive your bot lane and stuff. But to be honest, in most matchups, Galio can do this anyways. Worst case, he will sack a wave and do it anyways. So I'd say Veigar is fine, and Veigar is good into team comps that tends to play Galio. Like, he's good into divers like Camille and Jarvan, these type of things. Moving on. What are other good matchups for Veigar? So, I'd say that Vex is a new champion. So let's say Veigar is Vex. Vex is very bad versus Veigar. She dives in, Veigar does a great job versus that. Her laning phase isn't as oppressive as somebody like Syndra. So the lane is really playable. You can for sure play Veigar into Vex. And Vex doesn't like getting zoned, and Veigar does a great job zoning. So, those are like the four main champs I would say Veigar does well against. There are obviously other matchups that are like playable, like Orianna, Ryze, and Cassiopeia. Those are all playable. The issue with them is like Ryze, similar to Galio, will just push and dive your side lanes, and that is something, especially in a competitive setting, you need to account for. But the thing about those two champs is that they tend to do that anyways. Issue with Orianna, she isn't as strong as Syndra in lane. The main thing is just that she can easily ult you and kill you with jungle, but 1v1 is playable. I think it is better we move on to the worst matchups for Veigar, because honestly, everything else is playable. The only mage I ever hesitate picking Veigar into, and I would much rather play my Kassadin, is Syndra. Syndra is by far the worst matchup for Veigar. Nothing else is worse. This matchup is completely unplayable. She beats you level 1 to 18, she counters you later on, she outranges you, and her stun is better than yours, especially in early game. You can't play the game. You buy Merc Threads, you still lose. Your best bet in this matchup is to try to get Mercs and just, spam ping for ganks. With ganks, maybe you can win. If you get ahead of her, you can win. But it's out of your control. I would not want to play this matchup. Oh yeah, on a side note, Corki is another matchup right now that's meta, and it's pretty good for Veigar. Lane is really free, you can even beat him and kill him. Only issue is that Corki Giga outranges you and outscales you. But that's a team problem, not really Veigar's problem. So that's a good matchup. Now, like I said, for mages, that's like the hardest one. There's obviously hard ones like Seraph. The thing is just that it's laneable. It's harder later. Now for assassins, Kassadin is really hard, and so is Katarina. You will never play versus Katarina, so that's not really a problem. But Kassadin will get picked a lot, because he has been a counter to Veigar since the release of both the champions. Your best bet in this matchup is to just try to stomp him early, go first strike, cash out, play with your jungler, do every single move you can, even if you think it's bad, just to try to make the game blow up and end the game early. You can also go Predator into the matchup. I think it's fine. You can try to end the game that way by roaming. So let me just see if there's anything I quickly missed. Obviously you're good into stuff like Karthus and it's free, but nobody will play that. I'm trying to think of meta matchups where Veigar is good. He's fine into Sylas. Very, very easy to gank the Sylas. Viktor is annoying lane early. It's much worse lane than Corki. But it's for sure playable. Now let's talk about runes, okay? Let's move into runes. What runes should you go on Veigar? You should never go Precision. You should never go Sorcery. You should never go Resolve. You should only go Domination main or Inspiration main. These are the only runes I would recommend. These two. Predator and Electrocute. And we'll get to talk more. Taste of Blood always. Nothing else to go. Ghost Poro is best on Veigar because Veigar is not good with Sweeper. Veigar needs Vision to move, so you want to keep your yellow trinket. You don't want to have Sweeper. If you are a Sweeper champ, you should go Eyeball or this one. But Veigar uses yellow trinket, so you go Ghost Poro. This one sucks. This one sucks. This one sucks. You go Relentless, like I said. Movement speed is the most important stat on Veigar, so you want to go it. So when do we go Electrocute? You want to go Electrocute Veigar when you are against matchups that will contest you. Matchups that will abuse their sustain and their D-shield and resolve, and they will fight you. The reason being is if you play versus a good player and they have, you go Predator or First Strike versus this type of champs, they will fight you in the wave, they will contest you, there will be a lot of fucking aggressive plays in mid lane, a lot of 2v2s and 3v3s. Having the extra 50 damage from Electrocute is really good, and that's only 50 damage compared to First Strike. Electrocute itself will deal 100 plus damage, and Electrocute scales amazingly on Veigar. This AP ratio on Electrocute is crazy. 0.25 AP ratio. With the AP Veigar gets, that's a lot. You will pop people with WQ with your stun later on, because keep in mind, EWQ pops Electrocute. So you want to use this rune on Veigar versus these matchups in particular. These type of melee matchups, Diana, these type of things. Moving on, secondary tree. There's a lot you can do. Some games, you can go stuff like this. You'd want to go that if you really need tenacity, for example. It's not bad. This is very good for eco, just getting economy. This is nice if you don't think that you need boots early. For example, 1, you're not against a skill shot reliant champ like Syndra or Seraph. And 2, you don't need Merc Threads because you're not against TF with a Fiddlesticks, for example. Then this could be good. If, however, you want to go Mercs or something, you can do this and still get Futures Market, but Veigar doesn't really use this that much, so at that point you might as well go Resolve or Sorcery. I like to go these two when I'm versus heavy dive comps, where I'm against something like Diana with a Yasuo, Akali top lane, these type of things, because I will be using these stats really well in a game like that. It's hard to position against that. especially in solo queue where you have no front line. Maybe in competitive, you might not need this too, because your team can probably create space for you, and if they don't, you probably lost the game. But in solo queue, Veigar has to create a lot of space himself, and having this is a lot of damage saved. If you're gonna go sorcery, the only runes to go here is this one. The only reason why you have sorcery is even to go this one. Everything else you take does not really matter. You can go this if you want. I don't go it because I like to have tear for laning phase, and if you have tear, you don't need it. If you want to skip tear, you can go this, but not a single human will let you stack this on Veigar, so I prefer to go this. So to summarize, secondary, this or tenacity. This if you're versus heavy dive. This if you want to play eco. This is probably the most consistent one, just because you always get value. If you're really bad at laning, you can go this, but I have played 5,000 Veigar games. I've laned versus the best players. I've even laned versus fucking Faker on Veigar, and I've never needed these runes to lane. So even if you're playing LEC and you're against Humanoid or something, you do not need this, especially considering you're gonna have good matchups. You don't need these runes. And if you are so bad you're gonna go these runes, then go second wind, please. It will heal you more than biscuits. Like if you're playing Veigar versus Azir and you want sustain, go second wind. It's much better. Now, Predator. Predator is a better rune than Electrocute. I agree. Why do I go Electrocute a lot though? Because I tend to play really aggressive in lane and play to my limits and kill the guy, and that's how I tend to snowball and win games. But Predator is good. And I'd say that in the matchups that you're going to be playing Veigar in competitive, probably Predator is your best bet. If, however, you are versus a matchup that will contest you, I would still recommend Electrocute. But Predator is not bad. Predator is amazing. You simply just change your Keystone to Predator and you go Ingenious instead of Relentless. For secondary, nothing really changes. You just can't go this rune anymore. So you could go this. Again, you could go like this. For Predator roaming, you could again go this. It's really up to the game. These ones are always going to be the same. You go HP because it scales better, and you don't need this for early levels unless you are against a hard matchup like Zoe or Syndra. Having the sustain for early with MR something is nice, versus AFK lane like Corki, I'd rather have HP. Always CDR stat. Always. You never ever go anything else than this on Veigar. You simply cannot Q farm properly if you have 2 AP, because you will have your Q on cooldown. That's it for runes and items and matchups. I will quickly go into practice tool and show a couple of mechanics to keep in mind on Veigar, and I'll also try to think if there's anything else I will talk about. I can talk about how I lane and how I view laning phase. But yeah. We'll talk about cage placements and all of this. Oh yeah, and skill order, you do Q max, and then you do 2 points in W if the game is even, or you're behind. If you're ahead, you go straight E max after your Q. This means that a skill order, like this, when you're level 9, you would have like this. So you would have 1 point there, 1 point there, Q max, and then basically if I'm really ahead, I can just do straight E. If I'm behind or even, I do 2 points W. The reason for this is because you need 2 points in your W to one-shot the melees with your Q, like WQ the melees. Otherwise you have to auto-attack them once, and that's really cringe and will lose you a lot of tempo. So yeah, if you're really fed, you have a lot of free AP and items, so then you usually don't need it. So let me just get some levels, and we'll talk about some combos and some mechanics and things to keep in mind. So, alright. Let me get some gold. Okay. So typical build from me would look something like this. And I maybe have like a shadow flame in there or something like this. So as you can see, I have a lot of CDR still, right? Very easy to have a lot of CDR, but I'm also really tanky. So for Veigar, okay, there's no point giving him MR. Q flash is one mechanic that you need to do. If you're above bronze, you should be able to do this on first try. You simply press Q and then you flash. As you see, you can wait quite a long time with that. This will help you a lot to land long-range nukes and also avoid stuff like wind walls, or just make it harder for people to react to you. Your R is an execute. This one is quite important to practice a bit. Your R is an execute. Keep that in mind. This means that if you Q R, it will not work because if you Q flash and then R, right? Your R hits after your Q. That's what you want to happen. But if you RQ, it won't work. But you can still do it if, like I misspoke there, so you're probably confused. So you R, and then you Q, then of course the Q happens after the ult, right? But you can still do it if you do R, and then you Q flash to make the Q hit before. And you might be wondering, why is that important? Because there are times where you are against somebody like Lucian, you ult him, and then he starts dashing, and you can Q flash to where he's dashing, and you can make your Q hit before the ulti. There are times where you have your Q on like 1 second cooldown, you have to get your ult off quickly. It's just a nice combo to know of. And also, if you do Q, people can dodge it. Like if you do QR, people can flash or dash the Q, and then it's like really cringe because your ult won't kill them. So in a late game teamfight, something I do a lot is I just like do this, and it's undodgeable. They can't avoid that because you're queuing them in melee range. That way you guarantee that you don't lose a late game teamfight because you cringe your combo. So that's more of like a game finisher, whereas if you waste your flash, it doesn't matter because you win or lose the game there anyways. Then I like to just do this, like just R, and then Q flash inside of them. Now, cage placement is important. I recommend playing with indicator on, at least for your first Veigar games. I don't go it, simply because I know the indicator like perfectly. I have like fucking, you know, vision. So, but yeah. So, but this is how it looks, the cage. And like I said, when we talked about runes, this counts as one spell. That means that this will pop Electrocute, as you can see. That's why I'm saying Electrocute will deal so much damage. You know? Like, this is the damage it has without me having any fucking stacks. Imagine I have 1.2k AP, right? So it scales insanely well on Veigar. Now, cage placements. This you have to practice. This is the main difficulty of playing this champion. There's so many teamfights I watch in pro play where there's like a guy here and he wants to cage this guy. And the Veigar walks up and he cage him like this. Let me ask you, what's wrong with this cage? You're gonna say this is open, right? Yes and no. That's one thing that's wrong. But something you need to understand with Veigar cage is that they can walk inside of this entire thing. And when they can walk inside of this entire thing, and you press a W, they can simply avoid it like that. So you want to try to make sure that when you are caging people, you use the terrain against them. This is something I never see anyone do on Veigar. This means that if a guy is standing here, instead of placing cage like this, so he can walk everywhere, you can place the cage like this, and now it's very hard for him to avoid your W. This you can do during dives to pin them into this place here, and they can't walk anywhere. Instead of just placing it like this, and now you cringe the entire dive because they're walking around the turret. So, sometimes you want to cover this entire entrance, other times you just want to pin the guy against the wall, so he has nowhere to move. This is something that's really important to practice and understand. Now, your cage obviously can be placed inside of walls, but what you need to realize is, when you place a cage like this, depending on the vision they have and stuff, it might actually sometimes be invisible. Riot did a mini patch on this, like a year or two ago, but it will still sometimes bug out. Anyways though, if you're standing here, and a Jarvan is here, if you place cage like this, he will stop here. Okay? So yeah. That's something to keep in mind. Except for that, there's nothing else really mechanically on the champion. You can also like buffer your R, like you can press R and then flash and it'll cast automatically. You can also do like that, where you are behind you. That's useful versus like Yasuo wall and stuff like that. You know, you can also do like party tricks like this, where you do like R one way, you know, and then fucking Q flash backwards. But yeah, you know, like one mechanic that we are all missing is that before you could GLP flash, but you can't Everfrost flash because the charge is instant. So you have to flash Everfrost for that. So yeah. But yeah, that's pretty much it for mechanics of Veigar. There is not much more to it. Let me see if I can put Anathemas. Okay, I can. Okay, so let me just show you. This is a stun right now. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead in time. Okay, now I'm going to show you the stun. Maybe it works. I don't know if it works on practice dummies. Yeah. You see that? Let's do a side-by-side comparison. Oh, fuck. Okay, okay. Wait, so that guy's marked, and that one is not. Okay, let me see. Right, you see that? I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Yeah, this one is much longer. So yeah, you can imagine you're against Akali, right? And you do that to her, she cannot play the game. Yeah, but yeah, the main thing about your cage is cornering people, pinning them like this. Similar to like a Nivea wall, they can't avoid your W like this. It's unplayable. In teamfights, when you versus hard engage, just make sure you think about your cage, where to place it. If you want to place it on your team to stop hard engage, or if you want to place it to disrupt backline. Sometimes I place my cage and it's not actually doing anything. Like enemy backline is here, I just place it here and we're just fighting here. Killing the guys here. And these guys can't enter. Because you need to remember, the cage lasts 3 seconds and the stun lasts less. This means that just having the box there is sometimes more CC than the stun itself. Now I'm just gonna show a bit of my laning phase to show some of the things that we talked about and what I mean by them. So I think a good example would be, let me just find it. A good example would be when I played versus Viktor, because that was right after the buff to Veigar, and it shows some of the things I'm talking about. Okay. So here I'm against Viktor. And as you can see, I have Corruption Potion. Because he's gonna poke me quite a lot. In early lane, especially. I ward the middle of the lane because I assume he's gonna push and I have Ghost Borrow. That's another thing I tend to do. Veigar rarely gets push, so warding enemy raptors is not really an option because you can't crash second wave and ward, and you can't slow push 2 and 3 and then ward, because again, you don't get to push level 1 as Veigar in most matchups. So usually I tend to not have my trinket used until I'm at 2 out of 2, so I might as well just place one here to get 4 AP, because you get 2 AP when the Poro spawns. This is the Poro. And then you get another 2 when the Poro dies. So, yeah. Yeah, my goal is Q farm. So that's why you see I'm posturing now a little bit to try to see if I can land the Q. Notice that how I walk up a little bit here, but then he walks by the minion. If he stood here now, I would just trade Qs with him. I don't care if I take a little bit of damage because I will get AP. And I'll still get my Q up before the minions die. This is basically my pattern on Veigar. This is what I just try to do on repeat. He skills E now, so I realize that he's not very good. Because he can't punish me as hard with E as he can with Q. I miss a minion sadly. I just noticed like what's happening in the jungle. I try to avoid hitting minions without any like reason to. Like here, I try to last hit as late as possible because I don't want to push and get ganked. And I also make sure my Q doesn't hit the other minion because I don't want to deal damage to the wave except for last hits and setting up Q stacks. There I Q him. This is kind of what I mean. And here we'll go for another one. There we go. So obviously he's spacing bad, getting hit by them. But, you know, that's like for people to get hit by abilities, they have to fuck up, right? So this is pretty much how my laning phase goes. Obviously some matchups are a bit different, like I'll trade a bit more aggressive versus certain champions. It's kind of just how I'm playing, setting up my Q stacks. And then as the lane progresses, you will see that I get more and more AP. And we're chilling and I just try to value my HP. You know, like I still have potions, I'm chilling. Here he's like rotating, so that's a bit sad. I have 24 AP right now at 320. Usually having like 20 right now, like 18 to 20 is usually what I have. The reason I have a bit extra now is just because I got to poke him quite a lot. Now my team is invading and hovering me, so I just use this as my push out timer to get a recall. If they weren't hovering me, I would be setting up this wave just only last hitting and playing like I normally was. But the reason why I'm able to use my spells here is because if he contests me, we will gank him. Now I get a push out, and you will see that I get my Tear and my Dark Seal. If you have enough gold, you can go for Amptome instead of Dark Seal, that's fine, but you pretty much need Tear. Now, just like any other champion, my goal is now to just try to keep him in lane a bit. I do a little trade to try to get some AP. I get 1 extra AP there, so that's nice. You don't get an AP sadly just from caging them, they have to get stunned. That's something that sucks a little bit, but when you get mana, when you have enough mana, you want to start like looking for like EWQs. Sometimes you can get a jackpot and get like free AP in the same combo in early game. Most of the time though, you only hit your W or Q, but that's still 1 AP. So yeah, what I'm doing now, like, this is nothing different from Veigar and other champs, it's just simply like, I have items, he does not, he wants to base, so I'm just trying to zone him of EXP and gold. But yeah, it's not like I'm weak at this point, you know? Like, he just took 118 from 1 spell. I don't want to take too much damage myself though, because I just TP'd back. So yeah, and that's kind of just how it is, like, I'm just freezing on him, and if he wants to walk up, he is easily gankable by jungle. There you see the Electrocute combo, already at level 5. This is why I'm saying, like, this is Veigar's like first spike when you're like level 5, you're not that weak anymore. This is him through the Viktor Q shield. This is my damage. This is similar to a Syndra combo. This is Syndra combo with some auto attacks. Veigar is not that weak in early game, as people think, as long as you Q stack properly. So yeah, that's kind of it. Obviously this Viktor is not the best player. I think this guy was like master last season or something. I don't know. But yeah, we slow push and we dive him, and it's kind of just how it is. We kind of snowballed this game, but I just wanted to show some of the things in laning phase, because some people are like, should you always poke? Should you farm? You always value farm over the poke. And yeah. You have a lot of gank setup as Veigar, and that's it. So, I appreciate everyone watching this video, and I'm sure some are sad that I don't upload anymore on YouTube. It's just, I have a lot more stuff going on in my life right now than I'm not really able to upload all the time. And I have other things that are bigger priorities, but Veigar always have a special place in my heart, so it is extremely worth my time to make a video to explain Veigar. If you have any questions, you can always let me know. Hopefully I'll get to you and answer them. Just trying to think right now if there's anything I've really been like forgetting. Not really. Make sure you use Leprechaun Veigar, because it's a little bit pay to win. But except for that, have fun.